House Democrats are demanding the release of Columbia University graduate Khalil. This as government lawyers say that he failed to disclose his involvement with a controversial Palestinian relief group when he applied for permanent residency in 2023. Khalil was arrested by immigration officials this month, and federal authorities allege that Khalil covered up that he worked for the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, known as UNRWA. Authorities also say that he failed to disclose continuing employment with the Syria office in the British Embassy in Beirut, Lebanon. Now, Khalil and 7 other students sued Columbia this month to prevent the university from sharing disciplinary records with the House Committee on Education and Workforce. And for more on Mahmoud Khalil and the leader of the anti-Israel protests at Columbia, who also faces deportation for his alleged ties with Hamas, plus, as President Trump proceeds with his agenda, Democrats are looking to flip both chambers of Congress in the midterm election. To discuss, we have Morgan Bonwell, the founder and CEO of Right Strategies, and Michael Hardaway, publisher of Hardaway Wire and former aide to President Barack Obama. Morgan Bonwell, Michael Hardaway, thank you both very much for joining us here today.
Thank you
for having me with you.
Columbia University graduate student Mahmoud Khalil is facing new allegations that could lead to his deportation. They claim that he lied about his ties to the controversial UN Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA, which was stripped of federal funding after some of its members reportedly took place in the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel. Now, Morgan, is this enough to warrant deportation?
It's a privilege to come into our country, get free education, and ultimately live here. It is not anyone's right. And so I think, one, you need to be truthful in your application coming into this country. 2, I think you can't incite violence on our people while you come over here on free education. And so, yeah, I think it's worth looking into. I think our administration has a right to do that. There was an overwhelming mandate on November 5th about getting people out of this country who, one, are inciting violence on our people, but 2, we really got to clean up our own streets. And so, I think it's definitely warranted.
And Michael, his lawyers argue that this case is about his views on Palestine, and he was the spokesperson for protesters during the anti-Israel protests on Columbia on the campus, which sometimes had vandalism and turned to riots. Now, when it comes to protecting Americans and Jewish students, where do we draw the line on free speech?
I think there's a lot of conjecture here, and I'm not clear what's true as it relates to his alleged ties, as it relates to his behavior on the campus. And so I think we should take a deep breath and make sure that we know what's happening here. I also do think that it's inappropriate in a democracy for a White House to weigh in this way and force universities to do their bidding because of their political views. I think that's inappropriate. And I think that's what we're seeing here. And that's what we really see in an autocracy. I don't have any idea who this gentleman actually is or really any insight into his case. I'll make a general statement about the landscape we're in, which is we're heading toward a slippery slope where we're going to say this group of people should be deported. And before you know it, there'll be a different group of people and a different group of people. And I think we as Americans should be very careful in terms of what we allow the White House to do as they decide who should get to stay and who should get to go.
And House Democrats over here in D.C., they're vying to flip the chamber blue in the next year's midterms, but many of them are also looking to run for Senate or other offices, higher offices. Now, they only need to pick up 3 seats, net 3 seats, but many analysts say that the Democratic Party is in a hole right now. Michael, do you think that they can do it?
Yeah, analysts have no idea what they're talking about. There are 2 things that are true. Our messaging is awful. It's terrible. And we should fire many of our consultants that give that bad advice. That's true. The second thing is Democrats will take the House in 2 years for one particular reason. The Trump economy is going to drive us all off a cliff into a recession. And for most of us, the cost of everything are skyrocketing, from eggs to food to gas to all the basic things that we buy. But we as a party have to get ourselves together in terms of articulating who we are and what we stand for. I think the idea that we should be focusing on these social issues is not a good strategy, because I think the overwhelming majority of the American public cares about their personal financial situation more than those particular social issues.
And Morgan, do you think that Republicans can use this time as an opportunity to pick up seats? And how important is it to the Trump administration to maintain a Republican majority in the legislative branch?
It's super important. This is President Trump's legacy. This is his last 4 years in office. Right now, Republicans are really trying to build on what we've done. I think the data that we have now and moving forward is unlike anything we've ever seen. The Democrat Party really is in disarray. It depends on them finding a leader they can get behind, stop talking about the social issues that lost them the election in 2024. But then also Republicans continuing to, go forward with this message on typically Republicans are trusted more on financial issues. And so talking about the finances, doing our job and cleaning out the waste in the federal government. And I think President Trump's doing a great job at that to start. And keep in mind, he's only been in office, 50 days? I mean, he has done a lot more than we've seen any president do.
And last week, the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, voted with Republicans to pass a short-term funding bill to keep the government open. But since then, he's faced calls to step down from his colleagues and within the party. He said Sunday that he's not stepping down. Here's why.
The CR was certainly bad, the continuing resolution, but a shutdown would be 15 or 20 times worse. Under a shutdown, the executive branch has sole power to determine what is, quote, essential. And they can determine without any court supervision, the courts have ruled it's solely up to the executive, what to shut down.
Michael, should Schumer step down?
No, of course he shouldn't. And he's also not facing any serious calls for him to step down. You've got a member of Congress in the House that has said that, but no one in the Senate has done that, and no major party leaders have done that. He's not going to step down. He did make a terrible decision as it relates to supporting that funding bill that's crashing our economy and that allows this executive branch to do whatever it wants, including breaking the law by having someone who is not confirmed by the Senate, someone who's not even born in America, who has more power than the president of the United States, and Elon Musk. There is a real opportunity from a bipartisan perspective to slash government waste. We all can agree that there's way too much government waste. Bill Clinton in the 90s came in and created a bipartisan commission that studied that, and they did cut a significant amount of waste. Donald Trump had that opportunity here. Instead, he had this guy come in who's not qualified to make those decisions, and he's gutting our government, and he's destroying the programs that help old people and poor people and all of us, just the very basic things like keeping planes in the sky. Those things are not happening the way they should because of Elon Musk. We all should be concerned about that.
Morgan, I want to get your thoughts on the impact of Schumer's decision in the long term, and also your response to cutting, the federal government.
Yeah, I think President Trump was right when he gave this speech to the nation and said if he cured cancer and every awful disease, Democrats would still have something negative to say about him. Here we are talking about everything he's done wrong. If they can't acknowledge one thing he's done right, then obviously this just a manhunt for him again. I think the federal government it needed cleaned out, obviously. I mean, record numbers of Americans voted on November 5th for the president. They knew exactly what he was going in to do, and he's doing that. And so to say he's not leading our country is just inaccurate. He is in charge, and he's doing a lot to drain the swamp.
Morgan Bonwell, Michael Hardaway, thank you both very much for your insights. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What will be the impact of President Trump's 25% tariffs on any country buying oil from Venezuela? Well, joining me to discuss these developments is George Carrillo, co-founder and CEO of the Hispanic Construction Council. George Carrillo, thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, President Trump on Monday just announced that any country who supports or buys Venezuelan oil or gas will have it hit with a 25% tariff starting April 2nd. What is President Trump trying to target here?
I think President Trump is trying to target actually be a leader of the free world and putting pressure on Venezuela to have the appropriate elections, have free elections. The last elections were very polarized. We don't really know who really won. Both sides say they won, but yet there's just a lot of persecution that's going on in that country. and they are sending mass immigrants over here to the United States, and we're trying to get some of those criminals out of our country.
Right, a lot of them are Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang, now terrorist group. But going into Venezuela, who's their biggest trading partner when it comes to oil, and how will the tariff affect them?
Well, one, we're a big partner of that. We account for about 7% of their GDP when it comes to oil. It's approximately about $8 billion. But we're also looking at Brazil, Spain is a big trading partner, Turkey, and of course China.
We already have tariffs on them. Now we're putting tariffs through Venezuelan imports. How will that further impact China?
I think it's going to further impact the United States more than it is going to be with China. I think China is going to do what China always does, which is they have their own agenda. But with the cost of goods coming to us, especially in the construction industry, we're definitely going to see a large uptake in those products that we currently get from China.
Mm-hmm. Now, imposing tariffs on buyers of Venezuelan oil could force price discounts. What effect would that have on Venezuela, and how does it compare to sanctions that Trump imposed during his first term?
Well, I think that what hurts more, and I think because we're this economic leader in the world, I believe that the Trump administration believes if we impose tariffs and impose these penalties on other countries, that it's going to hurt more than the previous sanctions that we put on the country. And I think that there's good logic behind that, but we have to be very careful because it's going to be the American consumer that's going to end up paying for that. So if China and other partners of Venezuela don't change their behavior, then this might backfire on us.
But in the long run, the Trump administration says that tariffs will benefit American manufacturing, but we're speaking offline, you said that was going to take some time.
It is going to take some time. I mean, you're talking about big production. You have to be able, just think about it from mining when we think about steel. That infrastructure takes about 5 to 7 years to be able to create. And then you need to have and develop the workforce. So we have some years to go before that actually happens. I support the president in creating manufacturing jobs here in the United States, but we're going, I think, about it at a very steep price. These tariffs can be imposed, but it can be sort of this gradual uptick over the years. But he's going at it very hard right now and making it very pricey for consumers. How long can the American people sustain high prices over the next 5 to 7 years before we see manufacturing actually that we're more self-sufficient here?
And the Trump administration also extended the deadline for Chevron to wind down its operations in Venezuela. Does that take away the pressure on Chevron?
I think it takes away a little bit of the pressure. They're going to need to hurry up. I think the president will definitely impose harsh penalties if they don't get out. And the president definitely, he's said it from day one, dig, baby, dig here in the United States. So I think it's going to put more pressure on Chevron to get their production up and running and produce more oil here domestically.
He said that tariffs seem to be a negotiating tool, and maybe he's adding more pressure on Venezuela. Do you see that as going hand in hand with them deporting the Venezuelan migrants back to Venezuela?
I think so. I think there's something that the president is trying to negotiate here that we may not be aware of. But I think that it's a very slippery slope because in tariffs, it's a form of economic punishment. And right now, the way the administration is doing that, they're doing that across the board and hitting our neighboring countries where I believe in a free trade agreement to bring prices and keep them down. But I think that with his approach right now, we're creating more enemies than we are friends. And so I do think that we need to have better foreign relations, especially with our neighbors and with our partners abroad, especially with the UK. And I support the president and what he's trying to do, but it's the implementation strategy that I have a hard time with.
George Carrillo, thank you very much for your insights here today.
Thank you for having me.